some stuff will happen. All right, we are live. Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning, everyone. Live. We're live for the first time.
Awesome. Welcome to our test episode of the Dotfusion AI office hours. In response to customer demand and questions that we keep getting asked, we thought we would open the door and make ourselves available. Dave's joining me this morning and probably be a core figure as we progress through the next period of time where AI is top of minds and a lot of curiosity going on. Dave, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me, everyone. My name is David Chudak, and I am definitely not an AI expert, but an AI enthusiast, as you know, I like to call myself, because I don't think there are any experts in a field that's moving so quickly right now. But we're all just trying to get a hold of what's going on around us and use the information and the tools that we're getting access to, and building some cool stuff with them for our clients. So
super cool. Yeah, Dave is taking on a leadership role here as our head of AI engineering, and it's just really necessary as we kind of try to figure out, how to make that shift from a Dotfusion perspective. It's sort of old school now, crafting large websites kind of in this headless fashion, to, I guess, we're going through a phase where we're bolting on AI services, voice, chat, search, that kind of thing. And what does the future hold, where, is there a website anymore? What is the experience? What is generative AI doing from a content production, and how are agents making workflows faster, easier, more interesting?
yeah, it's interesting, and I think in the context of like leaders and decision makers and stakeholders having access to these tools, they're starting to take a look at their operational models of their business and seeing, how do I make my business more efficient by leveraging these solutions? And I'm hearing a lot of stuff about this, and I feel like my business could take advantage of that. So that's why we're here, is to sort of like distill and interpret some of that stuff and help businesses make those operational changes so that they can maybe gain efficiencies in one area to become more competitive in another area. So yeah, cool stuff going on out there.
Yeah, and to anyone who's taking a moment in their morning to listen in, it's pretty open format right now. Ask us anything. We have a few topics that I think are important to discuss and review, and we'll take this content and kind of syndicate it out in smaller pieces to our socials as well. But I was thinking, Dave, one of the folks a lot of people are wondering about right now, I'm kind of coming at this from a sales and marketing perspective, essentially, but just an understanding of what is really going on and what are we working with today. But so there's a couple of things that come up, like just this idea of agentic AI that kind of relates to MCP servers. Maybe you want to just kind of talk a little bit about this differentiation between generative AI that's making some content and agentic AI, which is kind of getting agents together to do stuff. What's your take?
Yeah, so the generative side is the language model side, where we have great benefit from these tools. But when you start to stack tools like this together and give very particular prompts to an agent and a set of instructions and a toolkit along with that language model, you'll start to see that we're able to do some pretty amazing things. So there's agentic coding, which takes those language models and all the coding knowledge that we have from a text perspective, where it gathers all of that and is able to interpret it. But then we're able to put over top different coding tool sets and security tool sets and formatting tool sets and vectorized databases that run in the background, so that we can have knowledge repositories for these agents. So there can be very simple agents that you design for very simple purposes, or there can be very complex agents or multi-agent systems, where you have things like you're going to start hearing a lot about A to A, which is agent to agent protocols, and MCP, which is that model context protocol, and how those, that model context protocol is sort of like the standardization of tooling, resources, and prompting, so that systems are able to plug in and talk to each other with a standardization, right? So we're seeing a lot happening right now with all of these protocols that are being established, and as we move towards multi-agentic systems, we're gonna be hearing a lot more about these things, I think.
Dave, I'm just going to play with our formatting a little bit. Some lessons I've learned in the podcasting scene here is to kind of get a little bit more mobile view, so we can spice this up and share later. But a little bit of curiosity, a slight bit of confusion as organizations race to figure out what to do with MCP servers and that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about what that means? Just kind of break it down.
Yeah, so the MCP servers, it's really about standardizing communication, and like I said, you've got your tools, your resources, and your prompts, and it's bringing all of these components together in an organized way where systems can talk to each other. And there's other things happening on the MCP server side, like you want security and control over the environment, and there's some other concerns. So this MCP framework allows these toolings to talk to each other in standardized ways, essentially.
And like, what's a use case for this?
Well, it's really, I mean, there's a lot of different use cases. Like I would say, software development IDs is an example. Business workflow automation, data analysis and reporting, web development and content management. Really, it's the way that it fits in is by plugging into each of these individual systems and allowing them to access the tooling and resources they need. So by standardizing these things into a protocol, it makes it almost like an API like flexibility for integration for these types of services. So that's why it's good, is it makes things universal. It allows tooling across different platforms. It allows the flexibility to choose your own options and know that it's going to have a level of reliability to work because it follows the protocols that are in place. So I think it's it's just this sort of bridge between the tooling, the resources, and the prompting, and sort of creating a reliable environment for all of that, I guess, in layman's terms.
Yeah. We're seeing our partners developing and deploying MCP servers to allow us to work with their platforms in different ways. Whereas, like, let's say Agility, which is one of our favorite content platforms, traditionally we build kind of within the Agility interface. So we're building components for a website. We create content models in Agility. Users, authors log into Agility, create or manage their content there. With APIs or MCP servers, we can actually get our agents to take content from our customers' origin source of content, say a Google Sheet, and pass that right through and publish through Agility itself without ever have to really go into the interface. So it's creating some opportunities for us to streamline authoring workflows. Like, really, a CMS right now is just another step where you're copying and pasting your content from the place you created it, publishing it, where we can speed that process up. But there's a lot of opportunities to be really creative around connecting agents to agents.
Well, and it's interesting, and I've got to applaud Agility for being on top of that so quickly, because having that framework in place allows tooling producers to interact with you and provide solutions. So the other day I was on an agentic environment building an agent, and it said, oh, do you want to connect to Agility? And it's great because they have that MCP server. they're ready to talk to these other tooling platforms and agentic platforms to fully integrate solutions that can push content, modify content, be scanning your site from an SEO and analyst perspective. Like there's a million things you can do with these agents, and now you can have them all talking to your site through this MCP server on Agility. So really, it's brilliant. It opens the door to you, to people offering tooling that dovetails into your organization, and I think that's great because it allows your end user to have a lot more flexibility and power within the solution that they're on. So yeah, it's great stuff. It's great to see Agility doing this. Thumbs up, Agility.
Awesome. And so I know, like, if we just look at a week at a glance, because so much changes in a week these days, and it's really tough to keep up. And I thought even this format, we could include a little bit like, here's what we think is something you should know about from the past week. And I know you just cracked the code in enabling our voice agents to make and receive phone calls. And yeah,
huge. It's like, this is a huge sort of step, because being able to call and receive calls with agents and getting all of these sort of workflows locked down, it opens the door for doing a lot more. So we can have call schedule, like we can have scheduler like assistants or receptionists. We can have receptionists that are tied into other forms of tooling, like forms to organize data for users. So like we could be doing call outreach to qualify people through a certain like stage of the process before it's handed off to a human, to try to save like 25 to 50% of that labor, and just make sure that the human who's talking to that person is talking to the right person and not wasting a lot of time. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on with the voice agent integrations right now. Also, the voice agents are becoming more and more integrated into applications that we're using, and the user experience, I like to call it, the user experience is morphing towards an agentic experience, where you have this UX, but you also have an AX now, which is guided by the way that these agents are mutating that experience for the end user. So I think that's going to be the most interesting thing in this next year or two, is seeing how user experiences are relying less on visuals and more on tactile features, like being able to speak with an agent or like manipulate the environment through other ways. And I know that like further into the future, we're going to be looking at like augmented reality and 3D user experience environments, and all this stuff makes my mind want to pop when I start thinking about it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the applications we're developing for different industries over here? We've got our manufacturing, we have shopping centers and buildings and commercial property, where it's really an interesting time for any organization to start to get their whole AI strategy and governance framework sorted out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one of the projects that I'm really loving right now is we're taking a retail client who has a multitude of data from different channels, like over 10 channels worth of data. They're selling in over 30,000 stores. And it's really like gotten to the point where everything is siloed. And what we're doing is we're bringing all this data under one umbrella, building an agent, and the agent's going to be able to call that data into the environment and analyze the data, and you can ask the agent questions about those data sets. So it's really amazing to be like, okay, like based on the marketing data for the last 3 months, what should we be doing in this region? And getting an agentic perspective on that, because humans might be better at sort of like that intuitive gut feeling analysis, but there are relationships between data that when you put it all together in a holistic way, there's relationships that exist that you didn't consider before. And I think that's the interesting part, is having this holistic overview with an AI agent. You might get a different perspective on your data and the way you should be pivoting based on the agent's feedback. So I think it's a really interesting time. These sort of projects are really interesting, and we're using agentic tools to develop these application environments too. So we're able to bring proofs of concept up very quickly, like for a project like this. Like in the past, to be discussing a project of this depth, we'd be looking at like a month of discovery, at least a month or two to get like POC up. And now, I'm looking at a meeting, and by the end of the day, I can get a POC up like that looks pretty amazing. So it's like things are drastically changing for product managers out there who whimsically have ideas and can actually spin them up pretty quickly, which is it's a good time to be alive, I think.
Yeah, especially for creators, because we're not blocked with the timeline involved with a full stack dev team and iterations. Like I really love this idea of got an idea, spin it up in a few days just to get a feel for it. You can even test it out there in the market and get some feedback. And then we kind of polish it off with developer expertise and security and compliance and all that.
Yeah, it's really an interesting time. And I mean, like you and I have talked about this, Chris, and like right now we both feel like we're at the point where when we use those environments, we're getting it to like the 70 to 90% finished mark. Sometimes we have really good experiences and it's almost like ready at that 90% mark. Sometimes it's a little bit off and we need to work it a little bit more. But the important part is that we get those ideas on the paper before those like those ideas that are great disappear from our mind. And I think that's the beautiful thing about being able to like ideate and create at such a fast pace, is it happens so naturally. It's like when you're writing, you get in that zone and you're writing and things are pouring onto the page. It's similar to when you're like vibe coding. It's like if you don't do it quickly enough, sort of that whole magic just disappears. So the fact that we're able to think on the spot and distill ideas with the tool to like get to that best idea, to implement that idea, is like really, it's an amazing time.
Yeah, and it's interesting just over the last 3 months how sophisticated you've evolved our prompt engineering, and it's a thing.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, when I hear news out there talking about you need to be a prompt engineer for future employment or whatever you're up to out there, it is really something. And I think, I'm just referencing back to I spent a bit of time on Reddit kind of assessing, what's the feedback on these kind of low code, no code tools. The mainstreams, of course, are people like, they're pretty pissed at Replit or whatever it is, because it's not baking my final product. Well, two things. One, you're not thinking like a software engineer. So they are built for software engineers to increase their velocity. But also, it's like, dude, this thing just built you something like that's 80% there.
I know.
2 hours.
I know.
Like popcorn and.
I'm on that boat too, and I think that's part of it, is like when you get people that are like, it didn't make what I wanted. Well, you have to think like, if I gave a human team that level of instruction, they probably would have done worse. And you have to detail like every corner of the environment, and if you don't, AI, like, I don't like to say hallucinates, but it fills in those blanks that you've left with whatever it thinks is best. And sometimes that looks like a hallucination. Sometimes it's a pretty sound decision, but it might not have been the decision that you want. So you have to really carefully go in. And that's why I think my background as a product manager helps as well. And also like having a bit of business acumen, because like I can operationally analyze what's going on within the business and like what they're trying to achieve. First of all, like, what are you setting out to do? Like, what's the start point? What's the end goal? And then like engineering solutions that fall within that framework of like what the end goal is, by thinking of it as a product and thinking, okay, like every corner of this product has to be detailed to this machine, or this machine's not going to know what to do to build this end product. So, it's interesting. A guy threw a concept on LinkedIn the other day. Hey, wouldn't it be cool to do this? And, I shot him a message about an hour later, and I'm like, here's your MCP. And the guy's just like, like, and it's really funny because, we're living in that time right now where you can come up with that crazy idea, and an hour later, like, some guy can inbox you and have it built. And like, that's just it's great, because if you're ready to jump on things and you have that level of excitement, you could find some good partners out there too. I mean, you might be an idea guy that finds a guy that just really knows how to throw down some prompts, and you guys might be off to the races, right? So it's pretty crazy. It's not like the old days where you had to have like deep pockets to fund these ideas. Like, you can get out there with $20 worth of like Agentic credits and build an MCP now, right? So it's or I'm sorry, an MVP. I keep flipping MVP and MCP because we're talking about them so much.
Absolutely, yeah. Hey, something that's kind of like super topical right now is the velocity that voice agents are kicking in. I know you're doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and we've got some really awesome examples, from concierge services to promotional voice agents, calling customers after they purchase a product on Shopify, and just creating a really cool kind of brand voice experience. You want to talk a little bit about some of this? I don't know. You've been
it's wild.
4 months now. Yeah,
it's wild. I say to my wife always, I build robots all day, and I absolutely love it. This is where I wanted to be when I was a kid, and it's finally happened. Awesome. Yeah, no, it really is interesting, and I think the interesting thing about all of these voice tools and all of the automation tools is that there's a commonality. They follow a workflow model, and a lot of them are based on JSON, and it's just JSON code workflows that it's executing. And the interesting thing is that when you used to design a call center, you'd have to design a workflow and know how it goes through the whole switchboard. With agents, you have this workflow, but it's much more flexible. It's like a fluid workflow where if the person skips to like step C, it knows intuitively what to do in each of these contexts. So it's amazing. Like, the applications for this, just on the front side, at the very basic side, are like, you have a receptionist who's full-time, and you might not be utilizing this person correctly in that capacity. You can get a receptionist voice agent on there and completely repurpose that labor to a different part of your organization, right? And this could be a pivotal cost savings for a lot of places, because if you're invested between $50,000 and $80,000 a year for a receptionist, and you can take that person and put them in a more useful part in your organization, you can really change your profitability or your margins or your output in certain areas. So I think that's the interesting part, is business owners are starting to think like, this isn't like a opportunity to annihilate the labor force. It's more like an opportunity to become more competitive against my competitor with these tools, and be able to leverage that labor in other areas, right?
Yeah, maybe next week when I figure out the audio, we'll do a few demos for some voice stuff. I just kind of I need some headphones to get the audio channels to stream right, for example.
For sure.
It's really cool stuff. And what I kind of dig these days is just the nuance around the voice itself and the character building. I mean, anyone can test this if they have just the simple paid ChatGPT account. There's a voice button there, and you can change the character of the person.
I would recommend going to the Dotfusion homepage, because there's a pretty good agent set up there.
That's a really great idea. Absolutely. And that reminds me, we need a demo page to give people all of our demos and stuff like that too. We're having a lot of fun with it. But recently we enabled the ability for a voice agent to be parsing data from the conversation into a database, whether that's CRM, a spreadsheet, or something else. It can also trigger an email to the person who's talking to. We've got a great voice agent set up for an online immigration firm, and they're using the agent for intake. And oddly enough, and to my surprise, if the agent kind of discloses the fact that it's an agent, because it's hard to tell, and you kind of say, do you want to have some fun and talk to a robot? There's a curiosity there, and I think it's not going to be long before engaging with a robot of any kind is like anticipated. It's like, of course, like why would
It's interesting. You've hit on an interesting point, because it used to be like when you were talking to like a recording, people would like hang right up. But I almost feel like it's more alluring, where at the front side of the call, you're like, hey, I'm almost indiscernibly like an AI agent, and I'd love to talk with you. And this person's like, holy, like this is the first time I've ever talked to a robot in such a fluid, like there's so many people that I've previewed these agents for that they're like, this is like, I've never done this before. Like, this is crazy. And I'm talking to a full on robot, and it's having a seamless conversation with no latency, like a human. Like it's ridiculous, right? How does this work? How do you guys do this? And it's like, well, that's it's all in the prompt engineering, right? And it's funny because we've engineered prompts to engineer prompts now. Like we're using prompting to create prompts, which is really amazing, where we build an agent which has all of the context of the prompting documentation for the individual tools and templating examples, and we're able to give it use cases and information and have it build those prompts to like 80-90%. So everything that we're doing, like we should have that 80% rule right now. Can we get it to 80% with AI and then push it across the finish line as a human? And that 80% probably next year is going to be 90%, and then the following year will be 95, and and then soon they won't need us. They'll be going to university.
That's awesome. More time to fix the old boat. You just give me an idea, actually, as we're figuring out, what the best structure and format for the show is. Maybe we create, a Dotfusion AI office hours agent where anyone can go and talk to it and leave some questions for us, and we'll have the agent join us.
I actually love that, and I think there's a way that we can. There's definitely a way we can do that, and I think one of our API services allows us to do that video communication too. So we could set up an agentic video environment that's based off of that voice environment that has a seamless human-like video interaction, and I've seen this implemented. So that is a great idea, and I'd love to see something like that where 24/7 someone can boot up that office hours bot and be like, hey guys, I saw this cool thing about MCP this week, and we get a little inbox tick where we have a new idea that's come in through the agent. And but just use cases like this are amazing. And I think, businesses and marketing and sales professionals that are watching this, who are curious and maybe scared to reach out to places because they don't want to look silly for not knowing enough. I think there's people in this field that are at the top 1% right now, that are like the guys working at OpenAI, and the guys that are in like the top 10% of the pack that may be at like the top larger Deloitte agencies and stuff that are leveraging. But like I've said to everybody around me, as long as you're in the front 25% of the pack and trying to embrace things right now, you're in a good place, because it's not anything to be scared of. The more you start talking to people as a professional and start finding out how it relates to the business that you're a part of, the better off you're going to be. Because, there's no harm. Like if anybody out there is watching, reach out to us and just tell us, like, what are some pain points you're having with your business right now that are like repetitive? and like we'll take 10 or 15 minutes with you, book a meeting, and we'll try to figure out how we can help. And if we don't help, we'll send you away with like at least a few things you can do by yourself with like some agent tools to get you started, and then maybe you come back later when you're ready to dive in deeper on those operational changes. But we love having conversations with people, we love problem solving, and I think like come to us with some of those pain point use cases, and we'll try to sort you out.
Well, I'm starting to develop a further framework for the show. Maybe every show we have an example of a kind of a quick POC for someone who reaches out. I really think just creating a community of curious folks is really important. That's the way, it's also a delivery network for ideas.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I know time goes by extremely quick just for you and I normally when we're rapping about stuff, but as far as the show goes, we'll do this again. I think a little bit of feedback we're getting is to adjust it to 10 a.m. So we'll do that for next week. We'll promote it a little bit earlier. We'll take this and it'll be available on Apple, Spotify, and all of your normal podcast zones.
Awesome.
So yeah, thanks, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that was my first time podcasting. Everyone, I know I got the setup for it. I got the microphone and everything, but I'm just this is my first time, so I appreciate you having me on the show, and I look forward to future episodes.
Cool. I'll catch you at Supreme Friday.
Yeah, Supreme Friday. Okay. All right, guys. Good to see everybody out there, and reach out to us if you have any questions. Okay, guys.
Awesome. Good morning.
See you guys.
Peace, man.
Bye-bye.